Yes, this video will change the way you see relationships forever. See, we as people tend to get personal in times where feelings aren't required. And we end up making decisions that later on come back to bite us. But what if I told you most of those decisions we make are avoidable? If you're someone that's looking to be in long-term relationships and you want them to be successful, knowing these things will help you accomplish that. So let me start by saying relationships are contracts. Yes, they are contracts because you are agreeing to make something happen with someone else, right? And there's different types of agreements. You have written form and you have verbal form. Most relationships are done verbally. So when someone decides to become boyfriend and girlfriend, they're essentially signing a contract, right? They basically put it in the air like, hey, I, John Doe, will be this person's boyfriend, or I, Jane Doe, will be this person's girlfriend, right? You sign that contract. And there are different forms of relationships as well. Like there are poly relationships, monogamous ones, countless other forms of relationships, friendships. All of those are contracts. And the thing is, most people don't realize it and they don't really take it that seriously. Another thing, marriage is physical evidence of that contract. So there's two ways marriage goes about. There's marriage under the state, and there's marriage done between you and another party, the respective person, right? Usually, when you decide to get married under the states, you have to sign physical documentation, right? And that is how most people get caught up. When divorces happen, that's how they end up losing everything they have, because they signed a document with the government. You gave the government legal authorization for when you dissolve a marriage. So when most people sign that physical documentation, that's how they end up losing their houses. That's how they end up having to pay child support. That's how they end up having to pay all of these excessive fines, because you gave government permission to take legal action against you. You also got to think of gender norms as well. Like they play into that as well. When you decide to get married verbally, that's you and the person. Like, yo, you give the person you decide to marry your vows. Like, I want to marry you. I want to be with you forever for the rest of my life. Although it's a contract, the physical evidence will screw you worse than verbal, right? Verbal will take some time, but physical, you're screwed automatically. So that's the difference between verbal and physical marriages. Physical contracts under the states screw you if anything goes wrong. Verbal, you have more leverage because you can't really catch it unless it was like a recording or an event, unless there's evidence that could be used against you. So yes, that's the thing between marriage. That's the thing about marriage. Another thing, blood contracts. So there are times where you are tied to people because of the blood you share. And that's usually siblings and children. Sometimes even relatives, like outside the sibling circle, like cousins, stuff like that. But usually tied to certain people because of the blood you share. Sometimes I see people throw around the word brother, or you're my brother, you're my sister. It's cool because, you know, to each is their own, but when you get to the specification and understanding of how powerful words are, you wouldn't really throw around those words like that. Especially because I know you can't really trust people's authenticity. So that word, like, oh, you're my brother or you're my sister, those words, like, that's thick. You have to really, like, you get me? That's blood. Those are blood words. That's a blood contract. Another thing, dissolving a relationship. So breakups and divorces are essentially you closing off the contract. Like, oh, I don't want to be with you anymore. And that's you saying like, yo, this contract is done. We're not together anymore. We will not see each other anymore. We're finished. Divorces are just like breakups with extra steps. That's why I say like, yo, if you sign documentation with the state and you have like physical evidence on you and you gave the government legal authorization to take action. So divorces are usually how people get screwed. If they have a child with somebody and they end up having to pay child support because they have that physical evidence. So divorces and breakups are essentially just closing off the contract. Like, this is not going to be a thing anymore. If you want to really be protected, it depends on what you're doing, because like if you're going about relationships as in a business standpoint, you would want to sign a marriage contract. But if you're going at it personally, you would want to have like a verbal agreement, I would say, because everything else, if you don't know what you're doing, you would get screwed, like badly. If you don't know what you're doing, you're going to get screwed. So it's important, and that's another thing. It's important to know the right words to use. It's important to know it's important to know their terms and services as well. Like, because I can date somebody. Most people usually date without knowing a person's terms and services. Like, they don't read the whole page. Like, and it really matters. It really matters if you're trying to get something long term. If you want something long term. If you're just like, oh, you just want something on the side, you just want like something short term for the moment, you know, you don't really have to be so detailed. But it's also important. Still, you should use some things, because you never know a person's true character, right? So it's important to know some things. But back to the terms and services, yes, some people date looking for marriage without knowing a person's full terms and services. What are the terms and services? Certain lines they will cross, certain lines they won't cross. So when it comes to marriage, wanting to get married, you have to talk about everything. You got to talk about sex. You got to talk about the future. You got to talk about every detail. That's the term and service. Because if you just like learn to ask a few questions and you just end up saying like, yeah, I'm gonna sign that verbal contract, like, yo, I, John Doe, agreed to marry this woman, and I didn't even read the full contract. If something pops up later on, you can't really be surprised. Well, you would be surprised because you didn't know. At the same time, if you asked the right questions early on, you wouldn't be as surprised when it pops up. So if I were to ask a girl, what's your thoughts on sex? And she tells me, oh, I'm not interested in that. Me at the moment, if I know what I want regarding that, and she tells me like, yo, I'm not interested in that, I have the choice to not sign that verbal or physical contract. I have a choice to not sign that contract. Find another one. That's another thing too. Be equally yoked. You have to be equally yoked with the person, with people. It's important. So for the most part, that's everything I have to share. It might be everywhere because I'm getting used to just speaking from the dome. Before I was just like, I was writing scripts, but yeah, this video is designed to help change your mind about a lot of things that we do and consider normal, which in fact is not. So yeah.